Hello, everyone, and a very good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you're joining us from. And welcome to this session, to our webinar session, where we will be communicating the outcomes of the United Leadership Summit that happened last in April. And we are very excited to have you here. We are excited to see a lot.
Bonjour à tout le monde.
Sorry, the French translation is coming in. But yes, we are very excited to have you all joining us today. Please do let us know in the chat where you are joining us from, your name and also your organization, so that we can get to know each other as we get prepared to get started with the session. Thank you very much and a warm welcome once again. Thank you, everyone. Please keep your introductions coming. Please let us know your name, the organization that you're joining us with, that you're working with, and which part of the world are you joining us from? Well, okay. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, once again for introducing yourselves. It's our warm pleasure to meet you and our warm pleasure that you're going to learn with us today on what were some of the key outcomes from the United Summit. This session today will be co-moderated by myself, Joy Souma, the Advocacy and Campaigns Officer at Y Plus Global, and my good friend Teboho Mohlai, who is the African Secretary General. And if we could move to our next slide. Yeah, that's us. That's myself and Teboho. You can move to the next slide. We will tell you that we have translations. Okay. Thank you very much for that. So, colleagues, when we held the summit, and as you are going to learn later in the course of this, in the course of our presentation, we held a multilingual summit that brought together participants from Lusophone Africa, Anglophone Africa, and Francophone Africa. And we have carried forward the same spirit on our webinar today, and we have translations or interpretations in French and in Portuguese. So if you'd like to listen in any of the two languages, please feel free to select any of those options. of. Yes, and if you are having difficulties in hearing, please do let us know in the chat. So thank you very much for that. And now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Teboho to take us through the background and the overall goal of the summit. Okay.
Thank you very much, Grace, and welcome everyone. As Grace introduced me, I'm Deboho. Can we move to the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Hello? Am I audible? Oh, thank you very much. So the overall goal of the summit as we had it just a few weeks back in Johannesburg was to provide a platform for linking and learning and exchange among youth-led SRHR, HIV, and AGYW networks in the SR region to accelerate a youth-led movement and social accountability towards HIV and SRHR commitments. Next slide, please. The summit objectives, the first one is to collaborate. And through collaboration, we aim to strengthen that collaboration within and across youth-led HIV and SRHR networks at country level and at regional level. We also, secondly, want to unite or hope to unite in our advocacy in HIV and SRHR issues affecting we hope to enhance capacity of leadership to the greater impact and accountability for young people. Next slide, please. And with that said, we also would like to recognize the young people and the participants that joined us at the summit. We had over 100 youth advocates representing youth-led SRHR and HIV and AGYW networks from Zimbabwe to Angola, Namibia to Eswatini. And it was a very great summit and engaging process. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Teboho, for that. And thank you for the recap on how the summit was amazing. Colleagues, as Teboho had mentioned, that the summit really did bring in a very unique perspective, and it had very many unique action points. For instance, the summit was convened by two very strong regional networks, that is AFRIAN and Y Plus Global. And we had more than 100 adolescents and young people taking part in the summit in Johannesburg. And a lot of people have been asking, how did we select these young people? We reached out to 40 youth networks that are working on HIV and SRH, and also those that are working with adolescent girls and young women in the region. And we did ask them to nominate 2 young people per organization, one seasoned young leader and one emerging young leader in the spirit of mentorship. And we managed to get young people in all their diversity, as we will later show you in the presentation showcasing the outcomes of the summit. And one beautiful thing is that we brought young people from 14 countries across, from South Africa, Angola, Burundi, all the way to Malawi. So I'm not sure if Teboho is back, but if not, I'm just going to head over quickly to share with you some of the summit highlights, as you will see in the video that we're about to showcase. Wow. Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. And also, guys, as you can see, we did have a lot of fun in Johannesburg. We did get to meet each other. We did get to have very lengthy discussions for 3.5 days. And as you've seen on those videos, that we had such a good time. But we also did have a sad moment. A few days after the summit, we lost one of us, who, as you can see, some of you may know this, some of you may not know this, but Hazel was one of us. She was a young women leader at the Education Plus Initiative's Young Women Leadership Hub. And Hazel was a formidable young leader, a young woman advocate, all the way from Zimbabwe. Hazel touched our lives in one way or another. And for those who are at the summit, you definitely remember her for her charming smile and how she did light up a room when she came in. I would like to invite us to take a moment of silence in honor of Hazel. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for those reactions. May her light shine on with us. We're going to just play a 2-slide video for those who do not remember Hazel. And for those who are just meeting Hazel now, I'm sure you would have loved her. Shanice, please play the video. Thank you very much for that. We are still looking for ways on how we will be able to honor Hazel and her contribution to the advocacy field and her passion as we move forward. May her light continue to shine on. And now I'm going to head back to Teboho. Teboho, please do take us through this insightful session on the summit experiences. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joyce, and my apologies for my unstable connection. So we are going to move into sharing experiences or getting experiences from our summit participants. And I would like to invite Imojel Trevor from Uganda. Please kick us off with your experiences from the summit. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Imojel Trevor. I'm Mr. Y Plus Uganda and I'm a United Leaders member from Uganda. I'm really excited and delighted to be on this call. And I must say, wow, coming back to this discussion is something I really looked forward to. Allow me to revisit the experience we had at the United Summit. First of all, I must say it really became a valuable platform where we as young people were linking and sharing experiences. And I must say that we were able to realize that most of us are doing work that is very similar. And us coming together to work as a network is something that would really amplify the efforts we are doing and achieve really magnificent results. So my main takeaway from the United Summit was collaboration and joint advocacy. Like I said, during the summit, we realized that most of us are really running different work in SRHR and HIV advocacy, and most of our work is really related. And we felt that if we come together as a collective to push a comprehensive advocacy agenda, that would be something that would really strengthen us in the SR region. I must say this summit and movement is a really timely thing, because in our different countries we are having pressing issues in our realities that if we worked together, we could be able to overcome. Allow me to revisit this issue of the current dark cloud that is in Uganda, that is the Anti-Homosexuality Act. And this is something that I felt that as this movement, we could be able to back up the brave voices in Uganda and support the advocates in Uganda, because of the detrimental effects this kind of act has towards the freedoms and liberties of the LGBTQIA in Uganda, the national HIV/AIDS response, and also the comprehensive sexuality framework. So I believe this movement is very timely, and I look forward to a very big possibility that we can work out together. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Trevor. That was very insightful and also highlighting the current pressing issues in Uganda. Ntombi, are you ready? Can we get your experiences? Ntombi, are you online? Okay, and if Ntombi is not online with
Alors,
us,
si Tombi n'est pas en ligne avec nous,
Tata, okay, can see something on the chat from Ntombi. So Ntombi says her mic is disabled. So maybe Shanice, if you can help us with Ntombi's mic, and then we can move on to Tata. Ado, are you online with us?
Yes, I'm online.
Thank you. Over to you.
All right. Thank you so much. My apologies. I will not put on the video because of my poor reception that side. Yes. My name is Tatayaone Adomakabanyane from Botswana. I'm the founding director of an organization that works with adolescent and young women called Mosepele Youth Network Support Organization. Firstly, I would love to say it was a great experience that I had at the summit. I enjoyed every moment, and I feel what I got from the summit is really what what I got from the summit, it's mind-blowing. So my experience was very nice. I got to realize that young people, especially the ones that were represented at the summit, we experience the same issues, and it's for us to acknowledge that indeed we experience the same issues across our countries, and we need to work together to address those issues that young people experience. And also I got to experience that the importance of data, the importance of research as we are doing our advocacy work, that whatever you do, you need to put data to it. You need to, whatever mandate that you are pushing, you need to have researched deeply about it. And I believe that everything is possible, especially if we work collectively, we put a collective effort towards something, we will make it. And I realized that I hold the power as a young person, as a young leader, young people, especially those that were at the summit, because I got to experience and to interact with them. They hold the power, and I got to learn. I got to link up. And today, as I speak, I have friends in Uganda. I have friends in Namibia. I have friends in Lesotho, people that I've not met before. And today we keep on talking about the kind of work that we do, and we share our experiences, our best practices. And I really loved the summit, and I want to thank all those who organized it for us. And my takeaway will be the lesson on leadership and accountability. Before I went there, I just thought, okay, no, accountability is just okay, just being accountable, making sure that others are accountable. But I also learned that it also means holding myself as a leader, holding myself accountable, and the people that I serve. It's about having responsibility when you are leading people, making sure that whatever goals that you have set to achieve, you are really achieving them, or you are working towards to achieving them. I've learned that also leadership and accountability, it involves honesty, it involves openness with the people that you work with. It also about how do you hold other people, accountable, especially people that you are working with when implementing projects? How do you hold donors accountable, decision makers, policy makers, and stakeholders? So I really learned a lot, especially on this lesson. I also learned that it teaches us to value your work and
Wow.
yeah. I'm taking your time.
Thank you very much, Ado. I think you are Tatayaone Makabanyane, but I'll call you Ado because
Yes, I know it's cool.
friends in Botswana call you Ado, but thank you very much for that reflection. You speak about power, you speak about accountability, and being there for the cause and making sure that you go back and share the information with your peers back in your country and making those friendships. So thank you very much for that reflection. Ndombi, as we move on to you, are you able to hear us and can you unmute yourself?
Yes, thank
All
you,
right. Thank you
Teboho.
very much. Over to you.
As I build on to my other speakers as they have highlighted, I think my main experience was the linking and learning with other young people in all their diversity, learning from their lived experiences and finding out what works for them and how we can collaborate to address the unmet SRHR needs of young people and adolescents. Also, my key takeaway was the importance of working together, not working in silos, especially youth saving organization, working together as a harmonized group to leverage existing platforms that can enable us to advocate for the unmet SRHR needs of adolescents. I think that was my key takeaway as well as my experience of the summit. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, and Dombi. That was very inspiring. Those friendships, leadership, and making sure that we make the linkages worth it. Thank you very much. And as Meron and Ali suggested, please, everyone else, continue sharing your experiences as well in the chat, and we should be able to document that and share broadly after this outcomes meeting. Now, I'm handing back to the love of my life, Joyce. Over to you to take us to the next step of the outcomes of the summit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teboho. I mean, I'm listening to the three young leaders speaking, and I realized that we actually did achieve more than what we had set out to achieve with the summit at the beginning. And now I'm going to hand over to another inspiring young leader who was also part of the United Summit and is going to be presenting to us the key outcomes from the summit. Tony Olela, over to you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. And I believe that I'm loud and clear. And once again, my name is Tony Olela from Kenya. I'm a member of the Youth Advisory Panel for UNFPA Kenya Country Office. Maybe you guys have been wondering, like, what are we talking about? What is this movement? So we as a united movement of young people, we define our movement as an organic structure that brings together young people with common interest, fighting for a specific, sorry, sorry, I just lost something here. Sorry guys. I lost the slides. I don't know why. Sorry guys for my internet. Yeah, so as I was saying earlier, We defined our movement as an organic structure that brings together people with common interest fighting for a specific cause or injustices to bring about change. And we as young people, we are the movement. Next slide, please. So we as a movement, we decided that the core principles of our collaborations of our movement will be accountability, integrity, coordination, collaboration, and commitment. Next slide. And we acknowledge that adolescent and young people in our region as Eastern and Southern Africa, we face many crises. However, as a movement, together we decide that the crisis our movement will address is that HIV and SRHR rights of adolescent and young people continue not to be met. And these are commitments that we really will ensure as a movement that we push for. As we go to the next slide, we also agreed on some of the advocacy areas that we'll be focusing on. And these are the meaningful youth and voice, youth voice and youth leadership, gender and cultural norms, gender identity and expressions, economic empowerment, access and quality to services, laws, policies, their implementations and fundings for their implementations. And also we will be focusing on information, skills empowerment, which include healthy decision-making, body autonomy, relevant and diverse content, and diverse platforms. So there are also some of the key advocacy focus areas. Next slide. Yeah, so these are some of the key content areas that we'll be focusing on. And as a movement, we decided that our movement advocacy will focus on these key cross-cutting content areas, which is adolescent pregnancy, contraception and condoms, menstrual health, ART coverage, adherence and quality of life, new HIV and SRHR commodities, gender-based violence and access to justice, safe abortion, and mental health. So when advocating for quality services, for information skills and laws, it all cuts across all these key content areas. Next slide. So once again, I believe that anybody in this link, you are part of these focus population areas. And the teams that we are adolescent and young people living with HIV, adolescent girls and young women, young parents, adolescent boys and young men. And we also have young populations, that is young people who sell sex, young people who use drugs. We also have LGBTQI. We also have adolescent and young people with disability. Next slide. As a movement, as a united movement, we agreed that we will advocate and engage through these key platforms, existing initiatives through digital platforms, including social media, bringing in other networks, expanding current network membership, also through social accountability mechanisms or community-led monitoring, lobbying through position papers, capacity building, among others. Next. So as a movement, as a united movement, as you can see on your screen, this movement is led by young people. It brings together young-led SRHR and HIV networks in East and Southern Africa. It breaks down the silos between organizations and initiatives. The movement also unites us to level up our advocacy efforts as young people. We as a movement, the movement also strengthens our capacity as young leaders. And also our movement could, without a doubt, will be providing an opportunity to learn, link, and network from each other. So even as I take you back to Joyce, feel free to ask us any question. Thank you, and Joyce, back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Tony, for sharing what we discussed at the summit. I see rounds of applause going on round everywhere. Thank you so much. Keep them coming. Thank you for the love. Thank you so much. And thank you, Tony, once again for really highlighting that for 3.5 days, young people met in Johannesburg. And for 3.5 days, we met to hold a united youth leaders summit. And we came out of that summit with the united movement, a movement of young leaders in SRHR and HIV in the Eastern Southern African region. Even though I just looked around on the participant list and I see a lot more than just the Eastern Southern African region. And guys, I'm happy to report that our movement is already growing. We also recognize that we needed a movement that goes beyond one organization and beyond any one initiative. As you may have noticed, and as we had mentioned in the beginning, that Y Plus Global and AFRIAN helped to put together this the summit, but that doesn't mean that this movement is for us. This movement is for everyone else, and as you have seen the ownership that the young people have taken from Botswana, from Kenya, from Uganda, from Tanzania, and from all those other places where we have engaged, we are happy that this movement goes beyond any one initiative. Our movement builds upon the momentum from all the existing advocacy efforts. We are not reinventing the wheel, but we are building upon what has happened, and hence the crisis, as Tony had mentioned. Through the 3 days of intense group work and discussion, we agreed and landed on key aspects of our movement that Tony just took us through. And I'm very excited, colleagues, to share this with you as well. We have talked around some of the things that we will do together, but in our later presentations on what the next steps from the summit and what the next steps now that we have a movement will be, we will be sharing that with you. But in the next few minutes, I'd like to open this up to allow us all who are new to this movement and who would like to ascribe and be part of this movement to put any questions that you have in the chat box, and then we will be able to respond to you in less than 2 seconds because we are on standby looking out for your questions. Please keep your questions coming in the chat box. And kindly be reminded that this will not be the only opportunity for you to interact with the movement in many ways that we will also show you when talking about the next steps. So please keep these questions coming. A reminder that since only the panelists are able to unmute themselves, kindly use the chat and the Q&A function that is depending on the gadget that you're using, either at the bottom or at the top of your screen. Okay, someone has asked for the slide. Thank you very much for that. We will definitely be sharing all the resource materials from the summit, including the slide set, if that would be essential. And thank you very much to all those who attended the summit and are also sharing their impact and also sharing their experiences in the chat box. Please keep those coming as well. They're very essential because it also gives direction in the way that we are headed as a movement. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the rounds of applause. Thank you for the hearts. Thanks for the resources. There is a question in the chat. The question on young parents, what's the plan to engage them? Thank you very much for bringing up this question. As Tony's presentation highlighted, and I think some of the other panelists will also be able to respond to you in the chat, that we included and we engaged young people in all their diversity. But one thing that we were very keen on was, despite engaging organizations that work on adolescent HIV and sexual reproductive health, we also did create a slot for each country to nominate an organization that is working around the issues of adolescent girls and young women. And therefore, we also ended up with many young mothers in the room and many others who have also been part as young parents. So we have a whole diverse community. As Tony just shared, we brought all young people in all their diversity in one room, including the adolescents and young mothers. Yes, there's another question on how partners can support. I would not want to take on this question alone, so I'm going to open this up for any of our other colleagues to take up the question on how can partners support. And Ali and Meron, I'm pushing this over to you as the key strategic partners who we have engaged with in this process. Over to you.
Thanks, Joyce. Yeah, some fantastic questions there in the chat. Just to say, we have a few slides after this one that really explain how different partners and some ideas, and we also want to hear from you in terms of how you feel that you can either join the movement as youth-led networks or also support as partners. So more soon.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ali. We are really looking forward to the next session as well. Just wrapping up with the almost final question: what are the plans for and structures for communication moving forward? This is also something that we have in our next few slides. We are very excited that you're also very excited to see the next steps for the movement and also to see where we are heading to from now. So thank you very much for that, everyone. I will do one final wrap and see if there's any other burning question before we move over to some of the identified needs during the summit. Going once, twice, and so. Perfect. So thank you very much, everyone, for engaging with the summit outcomes. And now we are going to roll over to some of the other key outcomes that came out during the summit. On this slide, you will see some of the key areas that young people discussed, deliberated upon for 3.5 days, and decided and agreed that these were some of the areas where they needed support in going forward. So we had the first area being technical assistance. And this is something that you will see in areas of advocacy, in areas of working together and social behavioral change. The young people also needed capacity building and capacity strengthening. One thing that was very unique about the networks that we brought together in Johannesburg was that not each of the networks was at the same level in terms of capacity. So some of them were already implementing huge grants and others were just starting out. But that is the beauty of the diversity, because now we are going to be able to also cross-learn with each other. Among the other needs that came up was the issue of South-to-South learning. And the South-to-South learning, capacity strengthening, and TA were in these following areas: the area of advocacy. And what the young people really highlighted that they wanted to continue learning from each other, or the area where they identified that they could use a little bit more work on, was the area of advocacy. Advocacy is a common date for most of the organizations that we are working with. And the networks highlighted that they needed support in terms of the advocacy approaches to influence policy change, to also get into funding spaces, and also to engage in intergenerational dialogues. They talked about the need for co-created advocacy strategies, because now we are no longer just working as silos. And that is the beauty of being in a movement, because then we get to move together, we get to move with the movement and also work very collaboratively. There were other issues that were also brought up, the emerging issues like climate and mental health, and also their linkages with sexual reproductive health and HIV. And of course, we cannot talk about young people in this digital era without talking about social media use. So this is also one area that came up quite strongly that we needed to focus on. Again, the main reason why we came together as HIV and SRH networks was so that we stop working in silos. And so this was a critical need area that we needed to address, the area of working together. And we talked about aligning, coordinating, and engaging the multiple youth networks. And that's why while we engaged 40 in the region, we know there is more. And that's why when we see more than 100 participants convened here today, we know that this is also going to be an area that we're going to be meeting as we progress with our movement. We also talked about holding each other accountable, and I think some of the young people who talked and shared their experiences earlier on also talked about the accountability aspect, and also how we can reach our constituents, and also expanding the network's membership. We had very interesting discussions around this, and of course we did come up with some practical solutions that we are also going to be sharing later on. We extensively talked about social and behavior change, and some of the areas that we needed support in were the areas in the IEC messages at the country and district adaptation. We talked a lot about digital engagement, whether online and offline connection, of course, taking into consideration the digital divide and other aspects. Next slide. So on this other slide, we continue talking a little bit more about what are some of the areas that the young people highlighted as areas they had needs on. So we are only highlighting 5. There's a lot more. We agreed as a team that these were some of the priority areas that we needed support on. So all those partners who are on the call and are looking to see how they can support, these are some of the areas where you can also still stretch a hand and support our movement in, but we will get to that and at another segment. So young people also talked about the aspect of personal skills, where they also wanted to develop their soft skills and their confidence, their negotiation and influencing skills, and of course, leadership skills. We talked about the issues of transitioning, and we also talked about how we can recruit and retain members in our organizations. And we talked about network building. So this is where the whole issue of organizational strengthening is lying, the area of proposal development, demonstration of impact, sustainability, and also when talking about governance structures. So internally, as the co-conveners, we came together and we have agreed that it will be great that in the coming seasons, and also we will see where else you propose that we can work together, but in the coming seasons, we will be able to convene at least 4 engagements with the young people and also those who would like to be part of our movement before the year ends. And I'm aware that we only have 6 months left before the year ends. And so we do have a lot of work to do, and we are gearing up to ensure that our commitment and our engagement with young people did not end at the summit, but is going to continue, and the movement is going to attain all that the priorities that it has set out. So thank you very much. I'll now hand over to Teboho to talk about supporting the movements and how youth-serving organizations and youth-led networks can support our movement. Thank you, and over to you, Teboho.
Thank you very much, Joyce. And I hope as the questions and comments come in on the chat, we can also see and link some of our questions to the presentations and what has been identified at the summit and post that, and also further on as we engage. So we looked at also engaging in the movement with youth-led networks. So one of the first steps, we are here sharing the outcomes of the summit, and also making sure that we meet with youth-led networks who are already part of the United movement. This is happening now. And we also plan to utilize online platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp to ensure that we jointly advocate and share opportunities and then collaborate. We also want to more engagement on opportunities, and then advocacy opportunities as well as youth leadership capacity opportunities, sharing successes, challenges, and lessons. And I think more information will come up around utilizing some of those platforms for the summit where we can jointly share. Next slide, please. And also we looked at supporting the movement, youth serving organizations specifically. Where opportunities exist, we will share them and share them widely through the aforementioned platforms and others that will come up as we engage and develop and grow this movement jointly. We'll also discuss and explore support across partners to reduce duplication. Silos has already mentioned, and also it came up from experiences that were shared. And also the investment. So we also thought about investment in collaborative efforts and truly looking at youth-led advocacy and capacity building efforts. We also need to think about money, time, and technical support. So those are some of the things that we looked at and we hope to develop further. So Joyce, have been able to catch your breath for the next slide.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for that. And thank you so much for answering some of the questions that already came up in the chat box. How can you support the movement? And we have something for everyone. As Teboho mentioned, that we had a segment for youth-led networks and how youth-led networks can support and engage with the movement. And I think she already reiterated that, we will be continuing to meet with each other, continue engaging on the social media platforms, engaging in joint advocacy opportunities, sharing and collaborating with each other, and of course sharing successes, challenges, and lessons. So really, thank you so much for that. For other partners who are not necessarily youth-led organizations, but are very interested and are also serving the youth, we would like for you to continue sharing the opportunities that exist, discuss, and of course explore support across partners to reduce duplication, and of course invest in us, invest in collaboration efforts, invest in the truly youth-led organizations and capacity building efforts, and think money, time, and technical support. So thank you very much, Teboho, for that. Now I'm going to head over to the next slide. Apologies, colleagues, I know we are almost running out of time, but this just shows you how much we had to share with you all and what came out from the summit. So we committed to the following three, and I'll just read through quickly. We committed to expand the movement, and this webinar is a first step for us in the right direction in expanding our movement. And we hope that after this webinar today, we not only will just have 40 youth-led networks subscribed to our network, but more. Already those we are seeing on the call today. We also committed to mobilizing support for the movement partners. We are looking at you to offer more support for us to continue with stakeholder engagement and support at country level. We really did have a lot of collaboration and participation from the UN country offices, and we hope that this is going to continue and to be scaled up. We will be having a resource mobilization plan, of course, because we know we need the resources for us to be able to move as a movement. And finally, as you heard from the song that we played earlier on, that we committed as young people to level up our advocacy. And how will we do this? We will enable meaningful and expanded AYP engagement in technical working groups and other decision-making spaces. We are keen to learn from our other generations, and we would be intending to hold intergenerational dialogues amongst each other. And of course, we would like to engage in the CCMs and the Global Fund proposal processes, which are currently ongoing in some of the countries. And of course, we will also be developing joint youth-led advocacy campaigns. So stay tuned and be part of our next steps. So Teboho, I have caught my breath. We had planned to have a Mentimeter, but because we would just like to also hear from you all on what do you commit? How can you support this movement? We have told you ways in which we have explored and ways in which we have thought of how you can support this movement. But we are keen to hear from our partners. We are keen to hear from our colleagues on how best can you support. What is your commitment to the movement? So kindly, please feel free to use the chat box to add in your commitment. Please just use the chat box to add in your commitment as we draw closer to our wrap up to this session. Thank you. We will give like 2 minutes for this one. So if you have that commitment at the top of your head, please just put it in. If possible, you can also let us know who is committing to what. So if your organization is committing to something, please do let us know what you're committing to, and do let us know which organization this is. We also remind you that we do have your contact details on our registration database, and we do hope that we can be able to also reach out to you once this is done. So please do use the chat box. Please feel free.
Thanks, Joyce. Maybe if also I could emphasize, the Mentee link is in the chat box, and also I see there's a hand. Please, if you have a question, drop it in the chat box and we will address it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teboho. Thank you so much for that. Yes, so please feel free to also get into the Mentee. You can follow the link that is in the chat box, and then it will lead you to mentee.com. Please do let us know your commitment and let us know how best we can work with you, collaborate with you to take forward this movement and what we have just shared with you as our priorities. And also, please keep your questions coming in the chat box. Motibeli, apologies. We are almost running out of time. We would really love to hear from you, though. So please, in case you haven't been able to get an opportunity to speak to us today, we will be able to, we are very easily accessible. And at the end of this session, we'll also be showing you some of the social media platforms where you can get us and where we can continue to engage and fortify our movement. So thank you, and thank you for your understanding. Okay, so please keep the chat alive. Thank you very much. And now we are going to, now that we've had your commitments, now we are going to listen to a few more commitments from some of the organizations that managed to put together the summit. Over to you. Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you very much to the regional directors, UNFPA, UNICEF, and UNAIDS for that recommitment, and to the director, Y Plus Global, and the president of AFRIAN. We thank you for your renewed commitment, and we hope that we will continue to tag along with everybody else. So now, a lot of questions came in about how we can continue to engage with the movement, and we are excited to let you know that we already have some social media pages that are already up. So let's get social. If you're using your phone or you're using your computer, please just go in and type the United Summit either on Facebook or on Instagram. You will find us, and also you can use the hashtag United Movement ESSA, United Leaders, on Instagram. Please, let's keep the movement alive. Let's engage on social media. Let's build our movement where young people are best found. Let's be together. So I think as of now, we are at 7 followers. The page was just created this morning. Please do subscribe. Please do follow the page. We are still looking into other platforms if at all Instagram and Facebook does not work for you. But for now, you can just join us there, and then we will see into exploring other platforms. You know, social media platforms keep evolving on each single day. So thank you very much for that. Once again, I would like to remind you that we will be having like 4 to 5 engagements before the year ends, and we hope to have a full house like we did today. We thank you very much for your commitment. We once again apologize for going over time, but thank you very much for your commitment and joining us on this summit. So I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge you for standing with us through your investment and partnership as we continue to grow the movement. Once again, special thanks to the partners who provided resources for the summit to happen, and even for those that are going to continue engaging with us beyond this point. We value and appreciate all your support. We thank you, and now I'll hand over to Teboho for some final thank yous from my end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joyce, and thank you everyone who joined us today. We really appreciate, and the engagement was very strong, and I would like to assure you that we will do our level best to ensure that we respond to some of the questions that we did not respond to in the chat box. We have noted them, and I think one of the questions that I would like to mention or highlight is how to join the movement. If you registered using your email address and shared your contact details, you have been automatically added to our database. So we will be engaging. Please follow the social media platforms as well, and then we can engage further. You will see those opportunities and any events that will be up. So there will be some sessions, just as Joyce mentioned, to address specific the thematic questions that came up as well today. So this is just the beginning, and there is more exciting things that are coming your way and all our way. And another burning question that I saw in the chat, we will communicate around that. And this is your movement. It does not belong to anyone. So how we're going to go forward in building and growing the movement, we will also further and communicate and also jointly develop and determine what this means for the greater good of young people in our region. With that being said, thank you very much, everyone, and Aluta continua, and we really appreciate your support. If we overstepped on anyone's toes, we sincerely apologize. That is not and will never be our intention. And with that said, thank you very much, and yes, goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.